Okay, if you'd like to start recording. Good morning everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody here today and declare the meeting open at 10 a.m. The meeting is concluded in accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2025. All councillors are reminded their obligations to act in the best interest of the community and to declare any interest in a matter to be discussed. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we work and live, the Palawa people of this land, Tasmania, and recognise their continuing connection to the land, skies and waters, and we pay respects to the elders past and present. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd also like to advise that today's council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. This means that members of the public who are unable to attend in person can still observe the proceedings. By remaining in this chamber, you're consenting to being filmed and recorded. Please be mindful of your actions and contributions as they'll be visible to the public, and thank you for your cooperation. So 25.1.1 is who is present. 25.1.2 is apologies, which is Deputy Mayor Christy Chappell. 25.1.3 leave of absence, which is Councillor Janet Drummond. 25.1.4 we have staff in attendance. 25.2.0 is public question time, and in accordance with the Regulation 3338 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2025, questions, whether from the public or from the councillors, must relate to the functions or activities of council, must not be defamatory, offensive or disrupt the properly orderly conduct of the meeting. A question may be asked at a meeting is to be concise, be clear, not a statement, and have minimal preamble. General statements are not permitted during question time. Members of the public and councillors may ask up to 4 questions per meeting. The chairperson reserves the right to refuse a question in accordance with the regulations. If a question is refused, the reason will be stated and recorded in the minutes. So, public question time. Do we have any questions from the members of the public? We have none. 25.3.0 is councillors' questions on notice, which we have nil. 25.4.0 is councillors' questions without notice. Do we have any questions without notice?
I haven't been back long enough.
I'm sure you'll work up to it, Liz. 25.5.0, declaration of an interest of a councillor or a close associate. We have none. 25.6.1 is the confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting held on the 15th of September. Can I have somebody move that the minutes be received? Councillor Wright and seconded Councillor Fever. Any comments on the minutes? If we have none, I'll take it to the vote. All in favour? Carried unanimous, thank you. 25.7.0 is the councillor workshop which has been held since the 15th of September. For your information, 25.8.0 is the Planning Authority, and pursuant to Section Regulation 29 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2025, the Mayor is to inform the Council it is now acting as a planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993. Can I have somebody move that we go into planning? Moved by Councillor Johnston and seconded Councillor Oldham. All in favour? Carried unanimous, thank you. We are now acting as a planning authority. 25.8.1 is DA 046. Alex, sorry. Would you like to lead us through this one, please?
Certainly. So to begin, this is DA 046 of 2025, residential construction of a dwelling and retrospective approval of outbuilding structures. So this application seeks approval for the use and development of a single dwelling, including the retrospective approval of the existing outbuildings. Specifically, the plans demonstrate that the following development and works form part of this application. Construction of a 98.75 metre squared single dwelling plus a 20.99 metre squared deck and an additional 6.24 metre squared deck. with the dwelling having a total building height of 8.5 metres, comprising of 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a laundry and kitchen dining room. Retrospective approval of an existing 20.28 metre squared outbuilding with attached decks and a 1.932 metre squared outbuilding. Construction of a concrete driveway with graded strip drains and installation of on-site management systems, including stormwater and wastewater. Referrals for this application include one to Council's Works Department and a response on the 15th of May included conditions regarding the upgrading of the crossover at the subject site. As part of the referral, comment was also sought over the accuracy of the flooding overlay that has been applied to the subject site. Due to the sloping nature of the property and since the overlay does not correspond with the location of the mapped watercourse, Skeleton Creek in this instance, which is located southeast of the subject site. Notably, the Works Department were also of the same opinion. The flooding overlay has been inaccurately applied to the subject site. This application had 3 discretionary items, including performance criteria P1 and P2 of clause 10.4.3 setback of the low density residential zone, and performance criteria P1 of BRES 2.7.1 stormwater management. During the advertising of this application, there was 1 representation received. This particular representation had 2 matters, with the first being overland flow path traversing through the property and poses a flood risk to the proposed dwelling. The second point was that they assert that the proposed development should be assessed against the flood-prone areas hazard code and should be further accompanied by a detailed flood hazard assessment. So just in response to that particular representation, while it is acknowledged that the statewide flood hazard overlay available on the Land Information System Tasmania, or commonly known as the LIST, demonstrates an overland flow path which commences from One Fletcher's Court and southeastward through the subject site. This cannot be deemed as flooding. The Tasmanian Planning Scheme, and specifically the Flood-Prone Areas Hazard Code, define flood as per the following. So it means the risk of periodic or permanent flooding of land from a watercourse or other inland water source. Since the overland flow is neither associated with a mapped watercourse or other inland water source or body of water, for example wetlands or ponds, lake or groundwater, combined with the topographical characteristics of the site, so a moderate slope from the northwestern front boundary down towards the southeastern rear boundary, and the proposed on-site, it is reasonable to determine that the proposed dwelling is not located on land subject to flooding and does not require assessment against the flood-prone areas code. Notably, there is an existing drain located in the road reserve seen in the attached photos in the report, which directs stormwater and overland flow towards the adjoining footway and drainage reserve. The proposed development further incorporates the installation of an absorption trench and graded strip drains within the driveway. Notably though, the rear portion of the subject site, and particularly the existing outbuildings that are sited over 24 metres northwest to Skeleton Creek, are likely subject to the flooding overlay. Notably though, the existing outbuilding structures are exempt from requiring assessment against the flood-prone areas code in accordance with C12.4 use or development exempt from this code. Specifically, outbuildings don't require assessment against the flood hazard code. So in consideration of the response, my recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions listed in the report.
Thank you very much for that, Alex. Can I have somebody move the officer's recommendation? Councillor Fever, seconded by Councillor Oldham. Councillor Fever, would you like to speak to it?
Support the council's recommendation regarding the 7 conditions.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Oldham, you're happy with that?
Likewise.
Thank you. Do I have anyone like to speak against the recommendation? Councillor Wright?
Just one little thing.
You were speaking against it though.
The retrospective approval side of something that always does bother me. The circumstances around that.
So during my assessment of the application, I did see, and looking through the real estate listings of the property that these outbuilding structures were there, and we had nothing on file indicating that there was approval. So that formed part of the application.
Do we have anyone who'd like to speak for this? Against? Councillor Johnston?
Mayor, I want to ask for clarification about something. I want to first of all thank our staff member for all the work and explaining all the codes. I just don't understand that the only one with the flood stuff, if overland flow isn't looked at as or considered under the flood code, is that correct? Is that what you were saying? I'm just trying to understand. So there's not a watercourse there, but for example, there's a number of houses above that have their drainage coming onto, or the flows coming down. That's not counted as a flood prime area. Is that correct?
It wouldn't be assessed in the flood-prone areas hazard code, but
Yes.
it is a stormwater issue. And given that the site incorporates, absorption drainage, the driveway has those graded strip drains, so it
Yes.
does, take that.
Into consideration.
Yes, correct.
Okay, and I too I'm pleased to understand that retrospective wasn't built by these people, that it's previous. And thank you for the conditions that you've put on, and hopefully there are no problems with flooding.
Okay, we have any further comments? Councillor Phoebe, you happy to close? Thank you. I'll take this to the vote. All in favour? Carried unanimous, thank you. 25.8.2 is DA 065. Would you like to speak, walk us through this one, please, Alex?
Certainly. So DA 065 is for the residential retrospective approval of retaining walls. The proposals for retaining walls along the north and east site boundaries. Retaining walls span a length of 36 metres long to the north boundary and 20 metres long to the east boundary. The retaining wall is approximately 1.1 metres high at the northeast corner, and ranges from 230 millimetres high northwest corner and 330 metre high east boundary, and constructed with concrete and steel reinforcement. There is a hardwood timber fence of approximately 1.5 metres high located on top of the retaining walls. The site accommodates a single dwelling and associated outbuildings, and is surrounded by residential use and development with heavy vegetation immediate to the north boundary. The referral for this particular application was predominantly around the additional engineering advice that we got from about the stormwater issues that were raised in the representation. And given the review of the engineering advice, the Stormwater Authority was pleased with the provided response and was satisfied. This application was discretionary on two clauses. So clause 8.4.2, setbacks and building envelope for all dwellings, performance criteria P3, and performance criteria P1 of the BRES 2.7.1 stormwater management. So during the advertising of this application, one representation was received. Predominant concern was around the flooding issues to the carport within the northeastern adjacent property during periods of rain. So in response to the flooding concerns raised in the representation, the applicant received further engineering advice and a stormwater report as well. So the proponent has further provided information, including a technical memorandum, stormwater design report, together with site civil engineering plans to address the matters raised. It has been advised by the proponent that the roof of the main dwelling is connected via charged downpipes to the roof drainage. The concrete pavement and pervious grass backyard would generate stormwater that would currently flow in a northeasterly direction to properties down gradient of the site, including 25 Bridge Esplanade. So the representation contended that the retaining wall was increasing the overland flow to 25 Bridge Esplanade due to the change in heights and a funneling effect where stormwater was being directed to the lowest point of the site, which is the northeast corner. However, the engineering assessment states that the site has always discharged stormwater to neighbouring properties at the northeast corner, as this is the lowest point of the site. The stormwater is generated from the concrete driveway / parking areas during all rainfall events, and from the grass backyard during substantial rainfall events when rainfall exceeds the infiltration capacity of the soil, as well as likely contributing flows from the neighbouring property at 40 to 42 Steele Street. So it's not clear from the engineer's advice outlined that it wasn't clear how the construction of the retaining wall could increase the overland stormwater flow, as there was no associated increase in impervious area at the site, and the point of discharge from the site is not changed, even with minor change in levels of the backyard. Reduction in the grade of the backyard would likely increase the rate infiltration of surface to the soil. It should be noted that other factors are contributing to potential flooding at the adjoining property at 25 Bridge Esplanade, including the lack of gutter and downpipes on the carport roof, and that the other upgrading properties would also be contributing to these overland flows. So given the absence of council stormwater infrastructure at the lowest point of the site, and the fact that 25 Bridge Esplanade is down gradient of the site, the engineer's advice has determined that it is impossible to prevent overland stormwater flow in major rainfall events. However, improvements could be made to reduce the flow volume, and accordingly it is now proposed that an infiltration trench be installed in the backyard to capture and infiltrate stormwater produced from the concrete pavement. This will mean that all stormwater from impervious surfaces are either discharged to the public stormwater system or infiltrated on site. So in consideration of that, my recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions listed.
Thank you very much for that, Alex. Can I have somebody move the opposite recommendation? Councillor Fever, seconded. Councillor Oldham. Councillor Fever, would you like to make any comment?
I support the officer's recommendation, noting it complies with the performance criteria.
Thank you very much, Councillor Oldham.
Likewise.
Thank you. Do we have anyone like to speak against this? Councillor Wright.
My concerns are a retrospective approval, but if it's had the engineering report and everything is done as it should be, then, and with all of the other information that you've given us, then I'm pretty happy.
Councillor Carter.
It's not against now that I've had a greater clarity around the infiltration trench that is intended to rectify some of the circumstance that we find ourselves in. So I guess it's pleasing to note that there's some effort to remediate the situation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carter. Councillor Johnson.
Similar to Councillor Carter, thank you again for a lot of work that's been put into this by our staff for something, again, that's retrospective. I do appreciate all the work that's done for this, and I'm really pleased to see where we've sort of come up with a bit of a solution. But I am concerned that we continually have these retrospective things coming to us for the work of our people.
Thank you very much, Councillor Johnson. I think everybody, no matter who you are around the table, we don't like seeing retrospective, but it's a part of the game that's being played, unfortunately, and when things come to council, if it hasn't been approved, we have to deal with it. And it's just the reality of it, unfortunately. Do we have any further commentary? If we have no further commentary, I'll take it to the vote. All in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. 25.8.3 is DA 101. Alex, would you like to walk through this one, please, with us?
So this application is for the residential demolition of existing dwelling and construction of a new dwelling and a shed attached awning. As just briefly mentioned, so the applicant is seeking approval for the development of a single dwelling, including an outbuilding on the property. The existing three-bedroom dwelling on the site is intended to be demolished to allow for the construction of the new two-bedroom dwelling. And specifically the plans demonstrate the following development works forming part of the application. Construction of a 172.2 metre squared single dwelling plus a 26 metre squared deck. It'll be single storey in height with a maximum height of 3.75 metres. comprising of 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a sunroom, laundry, kitchen, lounge and dining. Dwelling will be externally clad with brick veneer with trim and deck roof cladding. A 11 by 12 metre shed with a maximum height of 3.73 metres. Construction of a exposed aggregate driveway and demolition of the existing dwelling. 2 referrals were required for this application, the first one being to Council's Works Department with regards to the stormwater and crossover, and the airport obstacle limitation area overlay was triggered, but given the location of the development and the height of the structures, it was deemed not to affect the development. With regards to stormwater, recommendations were given that all stormwater be directed into the existing property system, and the upgrade of the crossover, while it doesn't form part of this application, commentary was provided by Works regarding that if they seek to pursue upgrading that crossover, then they'll need a Works permit. This application was discretionary on one performance criteria. That was performance criteria P3 of clause 8.4.2, setbacks and building envelope for all dwellings. And during the advertising period of this application, 1 representation was received and had 6 sort of aspects to the representation. So the first one being they were concerned with the siting, size and overshadowing that the proposed shed with attached awning was likely to cause. In response, and further detailed in the mediation section of the report, the applicant submitted a response and a revised design to the concerns raised within the representation. Specifically, the revised design included the removal of the awning and amended the design of the shed to have dimensions of 11 by 12, with a reduced total building height from 4.75 metres down to 3.773 metres. How the proposed development complied with the performance criteria is further detailed within the officer's completed planning assessment. The second matter raised was size of the proposed outbuilding will have a visual impact and subsequent impact on the amenity currently enjoyed by the property owner. Similar to the above, the completed planning assessment from the planning officer demonstrates that the performance criteria has been sufficiently complied with. Third matter raised was asserted that there was some inaccurate information contained within the plans and documents regarding overshadowing impacts and comparisons to sheds within the surrounding area. The response provided by the applicant, in addition to the revised design, adequately demonstrates overshadowing impacts via amended shadow diagrams, with regard being given to the revised design of the shed, and the new dimensions of the shed are closer in size to existing outbuilding structures within the surrounding area. The fourth matter raised was they were concerned with the outbuilding structure being subject to flooding due to past inundation events, and that the finished floor level may result in the outbuilding having an increased building height. In response to that, due to the intended location of the proposed shed in the southwestern corner of the subject site, the rear portion of the property is slightly elevated higher than the front section, and the presence of the existing private stormwater system, the proposed shed is unlikely to be subject to a potential inundation event. The fifth matter raised would like the inclusion of the material and colours of the shed in addition to labels identifying the orientation of the outbuilding. The applicant's response details that the proposed shed will consist of colourborn trim clad of the colour wallaby, which is a mix between grey and brown. And the final item is they requested for the outbuilding structure to have an increased setback to the shed boundary, which results in no overshadowing on the adjoining property. The applicant, in response to the concerns, submitted a revised design which removed the awning and changed the design of the shed to be 11 by 12, and the total building height being reduced to 3.773 metres to provide a reasonable compromise. Therefore, given the revised design of the shed, the residential nature of the surrounding area, which properties are subject to the general residential zone, and that a majority of properties in the surrounding area also contain structures that are sited less than 1.5 metres to their respective side and or rear boundaries, it is reasonable to conclude that the siting of the proposed shed in the southwestern corner is unlikely to pose an unreasonable impact as demonstrated within the completed assessment for the relevant performance criteria. In consideration of those matters, my recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions listed in the report.
Thank you very much for that, Alex. Can I have somebody move the officer's recommendation? Councillor Fever, and a seconder. Councillor Wright. Councillor Fever.
So I support Alex's recommendation as the officer in charge. Particularly pleased to see mediation take place
Yeah.
and adjustments being made. I think that's
Yeah.
a near perfect world when that happens.
Yeah.
Councillor Wright.
Pretty much what Barry has said, the mediation is great, it's good that the applicant has basically addressed all those issues and made some changes.
Yeah, it's good to see. Anybody like to speak against or for?
Not necessarily against, noting the mediation, but I have a question from representative at 272 St Helens Point Road concerning this application, being the shed, regarding as to the finished height. Will the shed height be measured from natural ground level or from finished floor height? Noting the maximum height stated as 3.73 metres.
So the height of the shed is as shown on the provided plans. So
That will be maximum height.
correct.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Alex.
That's right.
Do you have any further questions for or against? Councillor Johnson.
I want to thank you again for it. And the mediation is good. It would be good to understand the question about where heights do come from. That's good. If it's like from ground level or from the top of a. My observation is that we're constantly we're making discretionaries all the time. So it's a pity that we've got certain planning schemes that tell us that it should be this far away from a boundary, but yet we're always doing it differently. But that's not a reason not to support this. But still, that is always of a concern to me.
Okay, if we have no further comments, I'll take this to the vote. All in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you very much for that, Alex. 25.8.4 is DO053. And good morning, Deb.
Good morning.
Deb, would you like to walk us through this one, please?
Yeah, sure. Development application 053 of 2025. It was received for 3 glamping domes, a plunge pool and a sauna within the use class visitor accommodation. It's located at 824 Elephant Pass Road in Grey and has access from a state road onto a Crown Land Road Reserve. The site's got a land area of approximately 4.5 hectares and it supports existing approved uses, including 2 structures for visitor accommodation and a restaurant locally known as the Pancake Barn, which has operated historically on and off. The proposal required assessment against the rural zone and 6 codes. Proposal was discretionary against clause 20.3.1, which is discretionary uses, and it needed to address performance criteria 1, 2 and 4. 3 matters within the 1 clause, and they're all relating to the use within the zone being discretionary. The rural zone provides for opportunities other than agricultural use, provided the provisions can be satisfied. So the application received 2 representations with matters to be considered, including neighbourhood amenity, noise and light pollution, groundwater and surface water resources, traffic and wildlife, boundary encroachments and land clearing. So following notification, the application was amended to remove the plunge pool and slightly alter the location of car parking. The plunge pool no longer forms part of the development application. So concurrently, enforcement matters include boundary encroachments and vegetation removal. The matters raised within representations have been addressed within the body of the report, and I direct councillors to that section of the report. Development services, we continue to work through the boundary encroachment issues with the landowner, and it's related to the landowner applying to the Crown Land Licence for access, with those encroachments affecting that Crown Land Road Reserve. So and just to bring to the attention, the title has been surveyed by a licensed surveyor. A recommendation for approval of the use and development has been made with 13 conditions.
Thank you very much for that, Deb. Can I have somebody move the officer's recommendation? Councillor Fever, been seconded. Councillor Oldham. Councillor Fever, would you like to talk to this one, please?
Yes, I support the officer's recommendation. We've been through this proposal very, very thoroughly at workshop and at the last council meeting. I know there's 13 conditions, particularly condition 9 is very, very pertinent, which is related to the Crown and the access licence that has to be passed before any modifications or development can be made.
Councillor Oldham.
Likewise, noting the 13 conditions and so forth.
Thank you very much. Would I have anyone who would like to speak against this? Councillor Wright.
I do have concerns which I raised last time. There's a couple of concerns. I'm still hearing from neighbouring properties that there was in fact tree clearing on their own land. One of the neighbours has said she's got photos to show you that there has been tree clearing by the applicant on her land. The biggest issue that concerns me is the cask system, which is underground, which is greatly affected by groundwater. There was already questions raised about groundwater issues. Neighbouring properties already do have sinkholes that have been there for some time, and you know there's nothing to stop new ones appearing. I just think that we've said that it is something that the TPC is looking at, including in the restrictions, etc., on planning. I just can't help but think that we would be somewhat irresponsible to allow development to go through that has an underground system that is potentially dangerous, probably a worse situation or as bad as a landslip situation. And I just think that I can't feel right and comfortable. I'm losing sleep over the thought of, it has been really concerning me. I've been thinking about it while I'm trying to sleep. That's how much it's concerning me. So that is something that I find,
Deb, would you like to
The
respond?
other,
Oh, sorry, I thought you'd finished on that one,
one
Councillor
other
Wright.
thing is again with the Crown Land access, as they don't have the access approved yet, I'm wondering how we can approve a development when they don't actually have approved access to parts of that development.
Would you like to answer both of those things, Deb, if you're able?
Certainly. Yeah, thanks for the questions. The cask system, you're correct, is not part of the Tasmanian planning scheme as it stands at the moment. It's not the TPC who are looking at changing that. The information is that the Tasmanian planning policies incorporate those geological concerns within the policies, and the normal procedure, if and when the Tasmanian planning policies get approved by the Minister, is that it will prompt a review of the state planning provisions. And so it's something, we can look at in that what might occur in that space. So there's no formal direction that the TPC or anything like that is considering it at the moment. That advice is just how changes occur within our planning framework, and that they are mentioned within the Tasmanian planning policies in the draft form as it stands. The Crown Land licence is a normal condition. Obviously, the Crown Land would need to consider the purpose for the licence. We've conditioned it and it's timed as well. And so it is something like any other condition on a planning permit that an applicant is required to satisfy, and the timing is relevant. Yep.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak for this? Against? Councillor Johnston?
Look, I don't want to take everybody's time up. I want to reiterate what has been said by Kylie. And I do wonder, and I'm not sure again where this sits, but I feel that we need to do that the caste system in Mount Elephant around there is the largest in Tasmania. I feel that we as a council have a responsibility because we know there are risks. It's not potential, that we know there's risks with them. And we do have these overlays for landslip, etc. That, you know, we need to look to have that car system in our break a day planning scheme, you know, in our local area provisions. I'm not sure how that works, but it feels to me that we are being asked to do something that I feel is at risk, future risk to the proponent and those that use that space. So they're my major concerns about this, and of course the licensing. Just remind me, I'm sorry, there's a lot of papers here and I did look at this, but the timing for the licence, so if they don't get that within how long? What's the timing?
Well, the timing is before they can use the property for that purpose.
I get, so this, if we say yes to this, it could take them 5 years to get the licence.
Yeah.
So there's no time limit on saying if they haven't started it within 5 years and they still don't have the licence, they still actually are allowed to go ahead at some point and build this.
Yeah, so the timing is prior to the use and to be maintained at all times. So that means prior to this use occurring on the site,
Yes, I understand.
that needs to be in place and they need to maintain it in place afterwards as well.
It'll be $50 if you just bring that up to the front table. Thanks, Skylar.
Sorry, just one question on that. So when this, we put this to the vote and if it gets passed, how long does the proponent have to start building it? Like, does that last in perpetuity?
So in order for the planning permit to be in place, they need to have substantial commencement on it. So in effect, yes, they can start that building.
Yeah.
However, they do need a Crown licence to start that building as well. You know, so that Crown licence needs to be in place. So my understanding is that they have that underway, and that, you know, once that's in place, they can start the development if approved.
Okay. My question is, if it's improved, how long does that stay valid if they don't start work and they don't get
They're two
a
separate
licence?
processes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, through you. They are two separate processes, so they're in the process at the moment of getting that Crown licence.
Yes, I understand that.
Now, a development application has a timing of 2 years before they can actually, you know, before.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was my question.
Yeah, but it is open to an extension as well. Okay, so there's up to 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's
Thank you
okay.
very much.
Councillor Carter.
This isn't a guesser, and I don't require an answer from Deb because I think she's already answered it quite well. I just note that there are several historic and current compliance aspects to this decision today, and I see them as vital in terms of the integrity of our vote, and I also see it as vital in terms of the concerns that have been expressed by the community. So I just hope that all those things that are compliance issues are dealt with appropriately by not ourselves necessarily, but the authorities involved.
I think, if I may, from what Deb is saying in a nutshell, nothing can happen unless they have their licences in place, Crown licence. So if Crown land does not give them a licence for access, that's it. So they have to go through the correct processes, and we are bound by their decisions, not our decision. If they decide yes or no, that's their decision. So we're only making a decision on the application that's in front of us, not on the Crown licence. Is that correct, Deb?
If you like me to respond, yes, they're two separate processes. And if I could just add to, just in response to Councillor Wright's question, and I forgot to add, is that the on-site wastewater system is subject to technical assessment as well, and the geological information will be put forward there too, so through the building stage.
Thank you very much, Deb. If we have no further comment, I'll take this to the vote. All in favour? Against? Councillor Wright and Councillor Johnson. Thank you. DA 219, 25.8.5, sorry, Linda, DA 219. And Deb, would you like to take us through this one, please?
Yes, certainly. So the development application is for reconfiguring the land title 181009/2, also known as Lot 2 Cherrywood Drive in Scamander. The proposed subdivision is for 70 lots and 6 road lots to be formed over 6 stages sequentially. The development site has a land area of approximately 9.7 hectares with frontage to Cherrywood Drive, Tasman Highway and Albatross Court. The development site was formed through subdivision, creating 2 large lots within the general residential zone, with both lots having future subdivision potential. Lot 1 continues to be used as a large residential lot, while Lot 2 is the subject of this application. So due to the subdivision potential of Lot 1, a future road lot has also been included in the current subdivision, and it's located within stage 6. The application was assessed against the general residential zone and 5 codes. The application relied on satisfying 7 discretionary matters. Following the notification period, the application received 9 representations. Matters included within these representations included overland flow and flooding, land clearing, historic landfill, traffic and the Tasman Highway and the Steel Street Junction, and demands on Taswater infrastructure. These matters have been addressed in the body of the report, and I put forward a recommendation for approval with 19 conditions recommended.
Thank you very much for that, Deb. Can I have somebody move the officer's recommendation? Councillor Fever, seconded. Councillor Carter. Any comments, Councillor Fever?
Note the 19 conditions, which I think may be close to the most extensive I've seen in the last 11 years. This is an exciting project.
Any, Councillor Carter?
No, I agree with Barry's summation. I do have a question which I'll bring up in a minute, but that's fine. Thank you.
Do we have anyone who'd like to speak against this?
I want to ask a question.
A question, Councillor Johnston?
First of all, these are the sort of subdivisions that I think probably we should have. It's in the middle of Scamander, so it makes sense. My issue is about the creek that goes through it. I'm wondering why something like that can't be, because my understanding is when you have a subdivision there is some open, public open green space provided. My thought, I suppose, is why that the river, the creek, the watercourse couldn't have been what was the open green space, because and include, you know, a buffer area where you've got, you know, tree things that look after the watercourse, because and protect the quality of that water there, because ultimately that water enters, once it comes trickling down and over and into the Henderson Lagoon catchment. And these catchments are really important to our coastlines and our clean water. So I'm just noting that would have, I don't know if there's anything that we could have or done in that space, but for me, I just think there's that natural thing coming through subdivision that makes sense, but that could have been open space. So I'm not sure how it works when you have a subdivision, but I do know that there's meant to be green open space provided, and that seemed like a logical thing to do.
Yeah, would you like to respond to that? Because obviously the conclusions in the body of the report says there's no threatened species, fauna or fauna, and goes into quite a bit of detail in that. So.
That's not what I'm asking.
Look, we have considered subdivisions in the past that have had watercourses on them, where the watercourse has needed to be protected. In this instance, the design that was put forward didn't include that. The requirement for public open space is not a given. It's determined for each subdivision development as to whether there's a requirement for public open space through it. It was noted, the natural values report did play a part in it as well, and it's noted that the watercourse is undefined in that respect, and site inspections clearly did show that as well. The watercourse is compromised further eastward as well from development, including other land parcels and also going under the road, and when it leaves the Tasman Highway and further on through there too. And then it does land in the environmental management zone as you described. So given those existing changes to the watercourse, what becomes more really important is ensuring that overland flow is managed, as well as water quality when it does hit those natural areas, because we would end up with, through the subdivision, a modified watercourse in any sense. We would then have further modification. So in this instance, and given the design, it was deemed appropriate that it become part of the stormwater system, and water quality and quantity becomes important.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions? Councillor Wright and then Councillor Carter.
My question reflects what Councillor Johnson has asked about the watercourse, and I understand that there are other areas that are affecting that, but in doing this we might be adding to it, like making it a worse situation. I am concerned about the catchment area for the Henderson's Lagoon, because it is, and I know there's the report says there's no sensitive wildlife, flora, fauna on the property. That's fine, but my concern is, as Councillor Johnson said, with the Henderson's Lagoon catchment. My other question, during the workshop, I think it was raised that someone had suggested that there might have been an old tip site there, and were concerned about landfill, and Mayor Tucker said he thought that it was previously a quarry, not actually...
No, Councillor Wright, I'm very clear, not on that site. Further down on the eastern side, they used to get gravel out of there. So not on that site.
Okay, so there's no concern with it having been an old tip site, or has that been looked into?
Yeah, look, we did some quite extensive investigation in that area, including reviewing historic aerial photography right back to the late 60s, talking to people internally and also and in the community, as well as the EPA. So the EPA have actually done a search for me as well and provided me with that information, and there's no advice that there was a landfill on that site.
There is quite a bit of information in the body of the report to that. Councillor Carter.
Okay. Mine is, again, in relation to condition 17, which is public open space, but it isn't necessarily related to the watercourse. I think you've explained that very well. My concern would be a 70-lot subdivision and provision of green space would seem to be certainly a good idea. And I would also point to the error report that's coming through this Commander Beaumaris structure plan, where parks and public space to improve daily life and to retain young families is seen as a strong priority. So I guess my question is there any opportunity or any chance that we can reconsider that particular aspect and provide that green space? Because it would be my understanding that it is supported by the developer in terms of achieving that outcome.
Yeah.
Please, Deb.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The provision of public open space is guided by our strategy as well as our policy. So when we undergo subdivision, we have a policy that relates to that provision of public open space, whether that be cash in lieu or whether that be in terms of land. So in this instance, through the course of the discussion around the subdivision, with requests for further information and that, discussion with our works department and looking at our existing approved strategic plans, there was no requirement in there that was pushing forward the need for public open space to be provided as part of the development and then to be taken over by council as an asset going forward. If people or anyone or the developer wanted to change that or push that forward, as you noted in the plan, in the report, that there is a condition around public open space, it would require an amendment to the permit, and if that amendment was not considered to be minor, it would require a new development application.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Deb. Do we have any further for or against? Councillor Fever?
Can I just make a comment before we make a decision? I'd just like to thank the planning team for their absolute professionalism today, forever. You're always there to help us. I think you value add enormously to not only council, but our community. Today could have gone pear-shaped really easily with 1,000 pages and 5 items. The way you prepare us, you're always ready to give us a hand. I think it's outstanding.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you and well said. If we have no further questions, I'm going to take this to the vote. All in favour? Carried unanimous, thank you. The Mayor has like to advise the Council it's now concluded its meeting as a planning authority under Regulation 29 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2025. Can I have somebody move? Councillor Oldham, seconded Councillor Wright, all in favour? Thank you, carried unanimous. We are no longer operating as a planning authority. 25.9.1 is outstanding matters. John, would you like to take any questions or walk your way through this, please?
Happy to take questions, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, I've got a couple more.
Would you like to start?
My apologies for not being organised. There's a number of things in my head at the moment. Is there anything you can update us on in regards to the Fingal council officers? I particularly raised that matter because I was in Fingal the other day and was approached by a number of people within that community about that use, and I'm also of the understanding that the op shop is now operating in there as well. So I'm just wondering if we can get some clarification around what is happening, what can happen in that place.
Certainly. Thank you, Councillor Carter. So in relation to that process, we had an open expression of interest process underway, and then the Fingal Post Office situation came in, and it was like there was questions raised around its potential availability for the Post Office, so we put the process on ice. Now that's been resolved, we'll be restarting that process with an open expression of interest from see what's out in the community for the use now. So.
Then your second one, Councillor Carter?
I'm aware that the the General Manager's reporting on online access centre at St Helens, so I'm happy to wait until that for my second question.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston.
Sorry, I had a question about the Fingal, and I just did the same question. I just didn't hear the answer that you said about the EO.
We will be restarting the expression of interest process. It was halted because of the post office situation.
Yes, I heard that bit, but I wasn't...
restarting.
So that will be restarting.
Yep.
Okay, that's great. Mine was just about, to you, Mayor Tucker, about the meeting on the 7th of October, just around the installing of pedestrian crossings in St Helens.
Which one?
The installing of pedestrian crossings in St Helens.
Yep.
Just, it says here that there was going to be a meeting in October.
I've had a meeting on site with
with
the works manager, and there is only a couple of options because the Australian rule standards have changed.
Yep.
So it's very simple that the works manager will be working with state growth and the relevant authorities on looking at what is able to be installed if and where. and that's where it is. So we just completely leave that now till the works manager will report back to council at a later time once he's got all of his relevant information on where the opportunity would be for 2 separate pedestrian crossings, what would be the conditions of those and the parameters, and then that'll come back to council.
Thank you, Mayor Tucker. It's just when I come into town on a Saturday, it's very busy, and already it's not even summer yet, and it feels like it's quite difficult to move across.
We was considering putting a special place just for you, Liz.
Yes, that's
all.
right, okay, but I just thought...
State Grove couldn't accept that, couldn't adopt it. But yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Any further questions to John? If not, we'll move on to 25.10.0, which is petitions, and we have nil. 25.11.0, notices of motion. Nothing with that, that's pretty well straightforward today. And 25.12.1 is the Mayor's communication for the period ending 20th of October for your information. 25.12.2, Councillor Carter.
It was in regards to your communication, if I may.
You certainly may.
Thank you. First of all, I'm referring to the multi-user track lighting event, and I think that was an absolute positive. It was great to observe, being part of that, and it's an exciting development. You made a couple of comments in there about the daily use, which I think is sort of very important to make sure people are aware of it, that around 250 people use that facility per day, and that we are pursuing an extension of that walking track to the point of possibly $4 million maybe. And the other point that I was interested in, Andrew McGregor made a point about how long it had taken to progress that project. So decades we're talking about. So all in all, congratulations for achieving that outcome over that period of time.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carter. It was very, very much a team council event to be able to get that funding that we was able to get through different elections to get that aluminium bridge built across the bay. That's always been the sticking point, and we were very fortunate that we had the right people in the right place and we got funding for that, and that led to the next stage, then to the next stage being the lighting around there. It's just a matter of we've had some incredibly good people on council writing good applications, and I've been very upfront with every politician I see of what we need, and it's been constant, and we've got some good outcomes. What we do need is we need further federal funding now to finish the next part of that extension. We've got the state government commitment already for $1 million for that. Council's got our commitment in. We need another $3 million for the federal government. We've had zero federal funding since around 2011 in Break a Day. This is a really, really important issue for connectivity, keep people off the airport hill with their bikes and their prams and walking, great for obesity, mental health. It ticks every box, including the environmental guidelines to stop wave erosion on a landslip area. But at every federal election, we have not been able to get both parties to agree, only one party. So we need anybody and everybody of every persuasion to be putting the pressure on the federal members that we need funding to complete that. Otherwise, it's decades again before we actually get complete. So I would reach out to every councillor, every community member, to write to their federal MPs and implore on them the necessity for us to be able to complete that for the environment and all of those other issues. Councillor Johnston.
Mayor, I note that you've done a lot in the last month with all of this. So is there anything, I mean, there's a couple here that I'm interested in, but is there anything that you, besides that you would like to highlight? I would like to know if I can find out from, or get from Sustainable Timbers Tasmania the presentation that was provided by MS Teams. I wasn't back, so I missed it. If it's possible for me to get that, or?
I would get you to email Jane
Okay,
and
thank
see
you.
if Jane can give you a copy of the presentation.
Yes.
It was very short.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, you have been able to meet with the Deputy Premier and also a Senator with John. How did those, were they highlight meetings, or were they, you know?
They were, look, to be very fair, they were more about meet and greet the Deputy Mayor after the election, listening to our wants and needs, and we are sort of in the lap of the gods to see if anything comes to fruition. But it's really just being there to keep presenting to any politician support for the whole community of Break a Day and advocate on behalf of Break a Day.
Now, while Guy Barnett might be like to be called the Deputy Mayor, he is the Deputy Premier. Just thought I'd let you say. No, when you just spoke then.
We thought
he would be very proud to be that.
If the Deputy Mayor, Guy Barnett, was listening, he's just been promoted. He would appreciate that as a promotion.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the Mayor's communications? If not, I'll go to 25.12.2, Councillors' reports for the period ending 20th of October. And obviously, Deputy Mayor Christy Chappell is not here today. And if we don't have anyone else to report on that, I will go to NRM Special Committee, Councillor Johnston.
Okay, I wasn't here for the last meeting, but there were some people met with Polly, but the next meeting is the 28th of October, and we will hopefully have a couple of new members coming along to that, and it will be around the Scamander project will also be part of that meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Fever, East Coast Tourism.
Yes, our last meeting was at White Sands last Thursday. It was followed by an AGM. The discussion items were the next survey that is part of the positive impact plan, what should go in that. We looked at the Tri-Bunna Tomorrow project and an update, and there were some discussions regarding possible funding initiatives. Parks ran through their toilet upgrades. A number of them are going to be in our municipality in the next few months, which is really great. They expect Singalumba to be open by summertime. There's a provider to do that work. We welcome Grace back and thank and acknowledge Damien for his efforts being acting CEO while she was away. On the East Coast, we were informed by Tas Tourism, the East Coast had an excellent winter tourism period, and our visitor stats were up something like 23% for the quarter. Only minimal over the whole year, but the winter quarter was very good. After the general meeting, there was the AGM, then there was a networking event, and at the networking event, an industry award for accessibility and inclusion was presented, and Little Beach Resort won that.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Fever. Nothing for the Mental Health Action Group. Councillor Kylie, right, Access Inclusion Committee.
Yeah, we had our last meeting on 7th of October. We discussed several matters. We have some things moving forward with Ian is approaching community members and gathering information on all sorts of things like services available and access to different things, and he also says, and we discussed that sort of stuff that currently could fall back on council, but Ian is trying to work with community members to get more community involvement with those things, so that things aren't continually going back and being expected of council. We have a disability day being planned for December on Friday the 6th, and also one on the Thursday. I think we're planning one also for St Helens, which will be up at Sue Bofton's place. I'm not sure if we've actually secured the spot for the Valley one, but possibly something like that. But I think that's what the discussion is at. Or no, might be, sorry, looks like we're going to be using the multi-purpose centre at St Mary's. So I just realised that. Okay, what else was there? Disability action plan. We're having a quick review of that. There was only a couple of people at the meeting last week or this month, and so we hold that over to the next meeting so we can have a proper discussion. And what else? We're talking about having different people coming to talk to us at meetings, or probably more at the Disability Day, looking at having a lady from Centrelink who works with disability and pension type issues. She was coming to have a chat with us. And the next meeting has been scheduled for the 6th of December.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Carter, Bay Fires Master Plan.
Thank you. There have been no meetings of the Bay Fires Master Plan Committee, nor is anything scheduled at this stage, but I'm aware of the challenges around establishing Indigenous consultation. But in the Community Service Manager's report today, you'll note there is some progress in that matter, and I would also like to commend the manager in the fact that she's trying to ensure that there's some local Aboriginal people involved in a conversation as well. So that's a pleasing development in terms of ensuring that that perspective is well represented.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carter. It's just after 11. I think we'll stop for 10 minutes now and have a quick cuppa, and back at 11:15.
9 minute break.
We're good to go. 25.13.1 is the Corporate Services Department report. So, Rao, would you like to talk us through this one, mate?
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, councillors. The Corporate Services report for this month reflects the cycle we're at. It's the end of the first quarter of the year, and we're just working through the financial statements with the TAS Audit Office. That's always a long and detailed process. Yes, it's certainly fun. Councillor Wright, no doubt about that. And yep, everything's looking pretty good at this stage. I've noted, because it is the quarterly report, that we thought from a budgeting perspective that interest rates would probably be decreasing a bit faster than they have been. So it's good to see our investment portfolios actually continuing to perform quite well. And I'll touch on that when we get to the financial statements. October, again, quarterly, we had the audit panel meeting, and the minutes for that are presented in a separate agenda item. And at an IT level, there's a lot of work going on in that space, and the IT strategy will also be presented as a separate agenda item there.
Thank you very much for that, Rao. Can I have somebody move that report be received? Councillor Johnston, seconded. Councillor Carter. All in favour? Carried unanimous, thank you. 25.13.2, the monthly financial report. Rao, would you walk us through this one, because there is a few little variances with the getting paid in advance with your grants.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. As always, under the profit and loss statement, councillors, you'll see a series of notes there that highlights any of the major variances that are there. But moreover, the first quarter of the financial year, council's overall financial position remains very strong and very stable. The results show our steady income, controlled expenditure and a solid cash position. Importantly, the variances seen at this stage of the year just largely reflect timing issues and timing differences where grant funding arrives and when projects reach their spending phase, rather than any change to our underlying financial strength as such. Our revenue is tracking slightly ahead of budget, but again, that's mainly because of grants, and user fees are up modestly, reflecting steady growth and use of, for example, our waste transfer stations, statutory approvals and our facilities. I will note again that we also received a fairly hefty refund from Aurora Energy, and that will continue to flow through the financial statements all year. And that was due to really good work on behalf of Rachel in the accounts department. On the expenditure side of things, we're sitting around 7% below budget. That mainly reflects just the start of the year and staff vacancies with some delays around people starting. And that's just a natural lag that will change as we move through the year. And there's no signs of cost pressures or budget overruns. Employee costs, materials and services and depreciation are all tracking within expectations. And our capital works program is progressing well with about 1.45 million in works in progress at the end of September. And that, Mayor, is pretty much a quarterly update.
Thank you very much for that, Rao. Can I have somebody move the financial report be received? Councillor Wright, seconded. Councillor Barnes. Any questions to Rao on the report? Councillor Johnston.
I know that we've got more money. Does that mean we can spend more?
Run that past me. What was that, Willis?
Good try. Yeah. I just thought, maybe we could, 7%. Anyway, maybe it wasn't a serious question, but I think I'm going to put it there because if we're doing well, and if it's an underlying thing, it would be nice to be able to,
I think you probably...
spend it in the appropriate way. I'm not just saying throw it around, obviously.
I think you may have just misheard the update,
I'm thinking about
Councillor.
the 7%.
So Mayor, on the expenditure side, costs are sitting around 7% below budget.
Yes, that's what I'm hearing.
Yes, and that pattern is fairly typical for the first quarter of the year, and that will rectify rectify itself as we work through the rest of the year.
Okay, well, if it
So-
hasn't by the last quarter,
Well,
we might be able to do something about it.
I'll leave that to you, Mayor and councillors, but that's just the update at this point.
Thank you.
I just want to say, the work you do, it's great, because it's very easy to follow and see what's happening, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks, Councillor Wright.
The information's always there, and, yeah, it's great. You're doing a good job, and the investments are doing well. Thank you.
Okay, if everybody's happy, no questions, I'll take this to the vote. All in favour? Carried unanimous, thank you. 25.13.3, the Visitor Information Report. Rao.
Thanks, Mayor. Councillors, this is provided for your information on a monthly basis. Visitor Information staff and the History Room Coordinator provide a series of updates there. I think, Mayor, if take the report as read, if there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Rao. Can I have somebody move this? Councillor Lefevre, seconded Councillor Carter. No questions? Councillor Lefevre?
Just a comment, when I go to the East Coast tourism meetings, I like to bring up the numbers, and they're always fascinated by them. The TAS tourism rep was very fascinated by the fact that 991,000 people visited the information centre. He said that must be counting the same people many, many times, and when I thought about it, some people probably go in 30 or 40 times a year. That's how you get your 991,000. So.
Visits.
Yeah,
We should never ruin a good story by finding the truth.
It is.
It's still a very, very relevant
That's right, yeah.
that the amount of people who want physical contact, not be looking at their iPhone to get information, and it's very relevant. And regardless of visitor information many years ago wanted to get rid of them, we've got the data to prove that they are still very, very valuable part of our economic benefit interface on tourism on the East Coast.
That seems to be a theme, a bit of a theme throughout the state too.
I'll take this to the vote. All in favour? Carried unanimous. 25.13.4. We're going to defer this one, John?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Late last week, a query came up in relation to one of the planning delegations, and I've taken legal advice on it, and I want to talk further with council in relation to this matter. So we would like to defer this item to the next council meeting, Mr Mayor. So if we can just
Thank you.
have a motion to defer.
So could I get somebody to move a motion that we defer this? Councillor Wright, seconded Councillor Johnson. Anybody against deferring this? If not, I'll take it to the vote. All in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, councillors.
And once we got all the legal advice in, we'll bring it back and discuss it. 25.17.1 is the General Manager's report.
No, it's 13.5.
Have I missed one?
Yep.
All my sticky notes and I still missed one. Oh, hang on, that'd be the... Okay.
We want to hear.
The restrictive covenant, 25.16.2. Where the hell I went too quickly.
Page 1064.
Yeah, thank you for that, Liz. I went straight to my next tag. No, I don't need that, thanks, John. Information Technology Strategy, 25.13.5. Rao, this has been a journey, and I'd like to really highlight how our council is embracing the future, not wanting to be left behind. So this is a really important issue.
Yeah, no, thanks for that introduction, Mayor. It has been a journey, and it will continue to be a journey for some time to come. Councillors, as you're aware, over recent years, our reliance on digital technology and IT just continues to grow and expand. You know, it touches all of our core services: finance, asset management, customer service, and the landscape around us has shifted significantly, and it continues to shift at a very rapid rate of knots, in particular in the cyber security space and in the data protection space, which we can't underscore enough how important it is Council takes it seriously that we are protectors of community data. If we talk about where we need to invest in years to come, the IT strategy that's been put forward provides a very clear and actionable direction for the next 5 years. That is about creating a stronger cybersecurity resilience. It modernises our workplace systems and it enables a more connected and capable workforce. The strategy ensures that the technology decisions are made in line with our own risk appetite, the governance standards expected of a local government, and our long-term financial sustainability as well. It's important, Mayor, to understand that the IT strategy, while it outlines a roadmap forward, the governance required around IT management and IT implementation in this day and age is equally as important as the systems or the hardware and the software themselves. While IT you can often think of as separate to people, it is the people that are using it that are our biggest risk, but also who benefit the most. So the governance structures around how we move into this new digital phase for council and our community is equally as important. And I've tried my best within the agenda item to show council and the community that we have the governance structures and a very solid plan moving forward for the next 4 to 5 years. But most importantly, over the next 12 months to bring forward these policies and procedures that are required for us to not only grow our IT, I guess, maturity, but also grow the governance structures that support around it. So, councillors, we have discussed this at a workshop. It has been to the audit panel. I'm open to questions, anything that requires clarification, but ultimately I seek your support in endorsing the strategy and the associated roadmap that goes with it.
Thank you for that, Raoul, and I think very well spoken. Can I have somebody move the officer's recommendation? Councillor Johnston, seconded Councillor Wright. Any questions to Raoul on this?
Yes.
Question?
It is a question. No, it is a question because it's moving so fast for all of us, not just our council. It just seems to be there's something new happening every day. So it's, you know, I really am pleased that all this work has been done, obviously, and we will be able to, through this, have the flex. I mean, we're going through a revolution. We've had revolutions before. We're in the midst of something, in my opinion, that we don't really know where it's going to yet. So I thank you for this, and I hope you can continue to guide us through this, and that there is the flexibility to move with the stuff that's going on out there. I mean, it's a statement, but I feel more and more every day. I listen to the radio all the time, and I just feel like we're in the midst of a new digital whatever revolution. We did the industrial one, now we're on to, you know, the next one.
Where's the question, Liz?
There's not a question.
It started off with a question, Liz.
I suppose the question is, you will continue to work with us for our governance around this, obviously, and that there is obviously flexibility within this for us to be able to be part of that revolution, I suppose.
Yeah. Through you, Mayor, I think I understand the question. A cornerstone to the approach that we're taking is that we do not have the skills in-house to drive this and keep up with the ever-changing landscape that's in front of us. So partnering with a service provider, having the right service level agreements in place with those service providers potentially, to give us the internal and external resources we need to meet those challenges is embedded very much within this approach. And Mayor, I think that should be the confidence that council and the community would expect of a council of our size and scale.
Very well said, Raoul, and I think it's a very, very optimum time that we're bringing this forward now to be able to proceed to the next level. Any other questions? If not, I'll take it to the vote. All in favour? Carried unanimous, thank you. 25.13.6 is the audit panel minutes. And Raoul, this one would be riveting, so would you like to start with this one?
Well, in many respects, I'd like to start in a slightly unusual way by thanking the two councillors that sit on the audit panel and have to work through these agendas every quarter on top of the work that they do coming to the council meetings and working through the agendas that we have to work through. Councillor Wright and Councillor Lefevre have been exceptional members of the audit panel since my time here, and they really do provide great input at the meetings, and I hope and I think I can be confident in saying that the oversight that they provide should give council a lot of confidence in. When you look at the minutes here, it is not a small, insubstantial role. So, councillors, as you can see, this quarter we worked through everything from the Code of Tenders and Contracts policy that's already been passed by council, the ratings exemption and remission policy, the asset recognition and depreciation policy, the asset disposal policy. We reviewed the financial reports, the quarterly report on the risk register, the annual internal audit program, reviewed the audit findings from the Tas Audit Office, and they had an early look at the IT strategy and also the request for proposal for IT managed services that will be going to market in the coming months. That's not all of what's in the minutes, but it's a high line overview of what's there, Mayor, and I trust councillors will have read the minutes, and if they have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you very much for that, Raoul, and I think it is very much appreciated by all council, the effort that Councillor Wright and Councillor Lefevre does. It's probably a little bit boring sitting through it, but once you get involved in it, you can understand the necessity of it. So we've got a couple of good people who've put their hand up for a long time doing it. Any other questions or concerns? Councillor Lefevre?
Thanks for those kind words. I'd just like to say that things are much better now in the timing of the agendas. We get them probably a week out now rather than on the Thursday or Friday ready for the Monday morning meeting. That's greatly appreciated. It makes it a lot easier.
Thanks.
Raoul, just a question for me just on this, the request for the IT Management Services Agreement, everything we're going to do. When I was in Sydney at the last cyber security conference up there, they kept bringing up also about being insurance ready and how you report against that. That'll be through the IT group or council itself if we observe a breach, that there's incorporated through that agreement.
As in, if there's a breach of our cyber security, we would report that.
But what I was getting to, because they are manning the technology, driving the IT, it's their insurance, not council insurance, if there was a breach. And I'm just looking big because we've seen Optus and everybody else with all these breaches in Qantas and.
Yeah, look, that may be something we can stipulate in the service agreement, but we have our own cyber security insurance in place, and they effectively provide us a report every year on our cyber security posture and how we're going. So we're covered by our insurance policy as it stands.
Very much, Bill. Any other questions? Barry?
It's great that we're really proactive in the IT area, keeping on top of things. Just thinking from a community perspective, that really worries me. I'm looking forward, what are we doing for those people? We had someone come to us last week in his 80s, messed up his bank account because he was online and the power went off. Then he had to ring up and then his passcode had to change, probably an hour or 2 hours. So as we go down this journey of changes in information technology, I think we've also got to keep in the ball game what individual community members are going through and how do we help them as well.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, it certainly brings up a really interesting topic from, I guess, from a regional perspective. You know, cyber security is a threat to all communities. How do we as a council, or do we as a council, have a role to play in that? And that's a broader question for council and the sector. But certainly, you know, Councillor Fever, it's a risk. And given our demographics, it's one that, you know, is certainly something we could help with at some point if we chose to.
Thank you very much. If we have no further questions, Councillor Johnson.
From what you asked, your question and your answer about our cyber security people that give us a report once a year, it feels like maybe that could be increased to once every 6 months. It just feels that, as one of those people, I think that Barry's nearly talking about me over here with the, you know, all these changes and keeping up with it. That things are changing very quickly, and maybe I'm sure they would be looking at these things, but to ensure ourselves around cyber security, I feel that it's happening really at a breakneck pace. And I really support, I don't know how we do it, but our community, because we have an ageing community, we know that. We're in that, whatever it's called, space that we had when the demographers were here. And I don't know how we do that, but it would be something that would be good to consider as far as public, you know, providing some information.
I think, Councillor Johnson, we bring it to a workshop and have a discussion.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Not here.
Yeah, okay, but I think that would be something to consider, yes. Thank you.
Okay, all in favour?
Oh, we haven't got a move for a second.
We had a mover and a seconder. We had Councillor Johnson and Councillor Wright.
Well, you've got me now, if you'd like.
Okay, we'll go in favour again, and if we haven't, we'll get it right the second time. All carried unanimous. 25.14.1 of the Works and Infrastructure Report. So, David, what have you got for us this morning?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, David's away on leave. He's off in Korea, and his report outlines what the Works Department's been up to. It's starting to get that time of the year where they have to start cutting a lot of grass again, and you can see that the grading of Ansons Bay Road, which seems to be something we continually do, is ongoing, and weed management activities around the municipality, and the traffic counters on Treloggan's track monitor vehicle speeds in response to residents' requests, and the speed limit be lowered to 50 kilometres an hour, which, as you can see, it's 95% of people were at 41.15 kilometres an hour. So he's not proposing that a speed limit reduction be put in place there. Part of David's job, which he probably doesn't talk a lot about, is the amount of work that he has to put into the St Helens aerodrome. Running an aerodrome is not a simple business when it comes to dealing with CASA regulations, and the fact that you probably fairly little about it shows that David's doing an incredibly good job in that space. he's reviewed and updated the St Helens Aerodrome Asset Management Plan and the Mountain Bike Trails Asset Management Plan in the period, and yeah, that's quite an achievement. And really, that's. I did actually also touch on the fact that the Capital Works program's underway, and if I can just refer back to my notes, Mary, if you don't mind. We've got $1.45 million worth of work in progress at the end of September, and the resealing program for the road network is front-ended this year, so we'll see the resealing works, most of it happen before December, as I understand it. So that's actually, again, that's a really good outcome as opposed to leaving it late in the sealing season. And yeah, I think that's probably as much as I can provide.
Thank you. Can I have somebody move that the report be received? Councillor Fever, seconded Councillor Wright. Any questions to Rao from Council? Councillor Johnston?
I know you're not him, but anyway, how's it going now that we've changed the bin situation, you know, 1 week on, 1 week off? Are people finding, I think it's great, personally, but I'm just wondering how that's going.
Really interesting, through you, Mayor, that as much as the infrastructure department delivers the program, we in corporate, in customer service, are often the ones who would get any complaints that are coming through. We've had very few complaints.
Any praise? I just gave you some, but
I suspect most people are fairly happy. I know as a ratepayer myself, I really like the new structure of what's there. Certainly internally, it's being delivered really well. The new truck that we have, while it had some teething issues initially, that's on the road and working really well. I think it's actually, you know, from everything I can see and the lack of complaints that we've had, it appears to be working very well. It's the first quarter. Yep. It'll be really interesting to see at the half-year mark whether we're generating really significant efficiencies compared to what we were under the contract previously. I suspect it's going pretty well, and I think if you hover up a little bit, the strategic decision council made to bring this service in-house, that was actually a pretty big call. And it's a call that I think is actually delivering a better service to our ratepayers than the model that we had previously. And from what I can tell, looking at the financials, it's certainly not costing us more. So that's really positive in itself. I think it's taken a while for people to get their heads around that it's yellow bin, red bin. And there's an onus on councillors and council staff to always be the first ones to put your bins out, because everyone else in the street seems to follow. But look, beyond that, I think, Mayor, it'd be fair to say I think the service is going pretty well.
I have one other, please indulge me.
It is a question, Councillor Johnson?
Yes, it is.
Just checking.
Can we, on page 1088, where it talks about reducing contamination in curbside commingled, blah, 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 and it says here's practical steps, which I think are fabulous practical steps. Know what's recyclable, clean before. Is there any way we can get that out to the community, besides in our agenda?
I'd have to defer to
Jane's going like this at the back.
When we send out all the new waste calendars, we actually put, because they're only one-sided now, we actually put the recycling information on the back around what you can actually recycle, and we included like a little flyer with it as well.
Because that's excellent.
Yeah, and we included in the rates brochure as well, that sort of stuff.
Excellent, excellent.
Okay, any further questions? Councillor Fever, then are you just scratching your head, Ian? Councillor Fever.
It's an answer, not a question. Last week through Jane, I asked for some information regarding the broken pontoon down here at the main boat ramp, and David kindly got back to me to say that a piece has been ordered that's coming from Queensland, so when it arrives that'll be fixed, so if anyone in the boating fraternity asks you a question. The other thing is, that if it is a question, have we thought about anything, re the lids and bins, rubbish bins? With the wind in the last few weeks, 3 people lost their lids in our street. They just blew open, then they just flattened, then they just broke off and disappeared. So I just wondered if that had been taken into account, if there's anything we could do, or I imagine it's a whole municipality problem.
I think next time we get bins, we'll get cyclone-proof bins instead of just standard gale force.
Mayor, I'm sorry, I don't have an answer to that, but
Very big
but I think be fair, most bins are manufactured to that standard, and if people lose their lids, they can ring the office here and we'll get a replacement to them.
Yeah, the good thing is, Councillor Fever, while I was joking a little bit, I've had my lid blown off on the Long Hill and come down and put a report into council, and there was no problems in getting a new lid to get it fixed, because once they flip off, one side of it broke out, then the next piece went, and council carries spare lids, so people have got to feel quite comfortable just coming to council, and council will assist.
Might be worthwhile putting in the next newsletter.
Councillor Carter.
It's just back to the collection process. I think the other aspect beyond financial is the social, and it's certainly appreciated within the community that you get a wave on your garbage day as well. So I think we've done an absolutely right thing, not just from a financial perspective, but a community perspective.
Totally agree, Councillor Carter. Okay, if we have no further questions on this, I'll take it to the vote. All in favour? Carried unanimous. 25.14.2 is the animal control report, which we discussed at workshop, which is there for your information. So can I get somebody move that the report be received? Councillor Wright. Seconded, Councillor Carter. No questions on this one. Councillor Carter, I thought you were scratching your head again.
No, I just wanted to make sure that you gave other people the opportunity to ask first. It's in relation to the summary statement in terms of the different varieties of animals, and it predominantly is dogs, as you've heard me ask before, but I am rather concerned that the deer are now in Beauty Bay and in the houses above Beauty Bay.
I saw some at the bottom.
And the AMBO officer, Angela, was doing her service early one morning recently, and 4 deer came up out of Beauty Bay across the road in front of us. So the point I'm trying to make here is I think it's beyond reasonable that we agitate all the appropriate authorities, and let's get something positive done in terms of collecting data and doing something about not only deer but cats and a number of other animals beyond dogs that are causing us concern within our community.
We may have to have a deer crossing there, Councillor Carter, when they go for their morning swim.
I've heard some of your solutions in the past there. I'm quite convinced they're possibly effective.
Okay, look, they have been reported, parks are aware of them, and we all know that it's not a very easy task to have high-powered weapons in a community with deer, and so they do tend to target them on the verges around at the community, but parks are very, very well aware of the situation in Break a Day and across Tasmania in general. So good point, Councillor Carter. Councillor Johnston?
But just on that, there is apparently, and Jane might know about this too, there is an app that we should be getting out to our community, that there is an app where you can say, I saw this animal here, to keep getting that data to the state government, because really this is a responsibility not just of us, yes, to advocate, but really the state government has a serious responsibility here to look at these issues for our communities, these peri-urban communities that are really being impacted by deer.
Any further questions on the animal control report? If there's not, I'll take it to the vote. All in favour? Carried unanimous, thank you. 25.15.1 is the Community Services Report. Good morning, Chris.
Morning, councillors.
Chris, would you like to highlight anything through yours?
I think it's self-explanatory, the report, just letting councillors know that we are ramping up for the holiday season events, and we've got quite a few that we're working on, council ones as well as community ones. So we're going through processes and getting those ready for the actual event to occur.
Can I get somebody move that the report be received? Councillor Carter, seconded Councillor Fever. Any questions to Chris on the Community Services Report? Councillor Johnston.
Is there, as you say, it's ramping up now and there's a lot to do. It's a busy time. Is there ways that any of us councillors can be of assistance to the staff as far as in our communities to participate?
Thank you for raising that, councillors. Yes, it would be really good if you could promote the Australia Day nominations, junior and senior, please. That's very, very important. So when you're talking to your community members, and there are some people that just sit under the radar that we don't remember. So if you wouldn't mind just spreading the word that the nominations are actually open, we'd be very grateful for that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Carter.
Thank you. I have asked this question previously and I'm not expecting an answer today. I'm just wondering in terms of the council sponsorship, we had suggested we'd undertake a review of some of that allocation previously in our year, and I'm wondering if there's any progress in terms of reviewing that sponsorship. As I said, don't expect an answer today, I just wanted to raise it again.
Through you, Mayor, we can certainly do that, but if councillors have feedback, that would be really handy to have before we start the review.
Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, I'll take it to the vote. All in favour? Carried unanimous, thank you. 25.15.2 is the Bay of Fires Art Festival request to reallocate the existing funding.
This was discussed at the workshop, but just for those that may not have been there, we allocate $4,000 in the budget process for the Bay of Fires market. The Bay of Fires Winters Arts Festival asked that if we could reallocate the $4,000, so there's no extra bucket of money being allocated, it's just reallocating the existing $4,000 sponsorship that council already provides to the sand sculpture family workshop day.
Somebody moved the officer's recommendation. Councillor Barnes, seconded Councillor Oldham. Any questions on this? It's pretty well straightforward. It's just a straight reallocation. Okay, I'll take this to the vote. All in favour? Oh, Councillor Fever.
Just had a question with the draft funding arrangement. There was a star beside most of those incoming monies. What happens if they don't get up? They're obviously after grants.
Correct. If they don't get the funding, I would imagine it doesn't go ahead. Unless they fund it. They did say that if they didn't get enough funding that they may be able to fund it out of their existing bank account.
So we just get about $4,000.
Correct. We don't hand it over straight away, no.
All in favour? Carried unanimous, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. 25.16.1 is Development Services Report. And good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. Yeah, obviously a heavy planning load for the department this month, but just wanted to also thank councillors because there's a lot of information to sort through, and also, you know, governance and all the work that goes into preparing the agenda. So yeah, big one for the councillors this month. Yeah, the report obviously provides some information for the first quarter of the financial year. So yeah, councillors may have noted that the planning and building approvals are slightly up in comparison to the previous financial year. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that tracks along as the year goes on. Other than that, just knocking over as much project work as we can in the strategic space as well as the building project space, and provided some detail in the report, and happy to take questions.
Thank you. Can I have somebody move the officer's report be received? Councillor Barnes, seconded Councillor Wright. And any questions to Jake on the report? We have no questions. I'll take this to the vote. All in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, Jake. 25.16.2 is a restrictive covenant, Heritage Road. Would you like to talk us through this one, please?
Yeah, certainly. So this matter, it's a request for written council consent to build outside of the building envelope on volume 156294, folio 1. The building envelope was placed on the sealed plan as part of a historic subdivision that included a 2-lot subdivision and boundary adjustment. A review of the historic files suggests the building envelope was placed on an area of existing cleared land. The title has supported existing cleared area for quite some time, and the site has been subject to bushfire events. The restrictive covenant is different in that it makes provision for council written consent to build outside the envelope as opposed to requiring the restrictive covenant to be removed from the plan. The request has come about as part of a discretionary development application to build a dwelling on the title, with the site being outside of the building envelope. Included in the request to build outside of the envelope is a proposal to also include an area of revegetation on the site that, if approved, would be enforced as a condition through the development application for the dwelling. The applicant has provided reasons as to why the landowner requests to build outside of the envelope, and these include the building location is steep, creating difficulties in building and building design. The location is difficult to access by vehicle. The location faces southeast and has restricted solar access. The ability to install an effective solar system to the roof is diminished, and the building envelope is located within a landslip risk area, and wind exposure is greater. So I've provided in the report some of those overlays for you, and also a plan showing where the revegetation would be proposed, should council agree to the request. I've put forward a recommendation that council consent to the request to build outside the building envelope is given, but conditional on obtaining a development permit for use and development in accordance with the Act and the planning scheme. It should be noted that this does not amend the sealed plan by removing the building envelope from the folio plan, but it responds in a manner consistent with the direction of the restrictive covenant.
Thanks for that, Deb. Can I have somebody move the officer's recommendation? Councillor Barnes, seconded Councillor Fever. Councillor Barnes, you got any comment?
No.
Thank you, Councillor Fever.
No, just support it because in the planning process, covenants don't ride over everything else, so I think it's fine.
Would anyone like to speak against this? We have nobody wants to speak against this. I'll take this to the vote. All in favour? Carried. And against, Councillor Johnston and Councillor Wright. So that is carried. 25.17, thank you, Deb. 25.17.1 is the General Manager's report. John, would you like to take over?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things. I'll start off with the Online Access Centre meeting with Patrick Gregory a couple of last week, must have been. And note that he also met with St Helens Online Access Centre and a few other access centres in the area. Effectively, they're still proceeding with looking at options for the future, and 4 options that potentially on the table was to continue funding an online access centre, join with another organisation, or bring it into combination with the library as well, or trying to pass it off to another organisation, full stop. The probably with the ones here, certainly the Fingal one is a little bit different because that's there's no library there per se with Link. So talking to another organisation there in relation to that. St Mary's one, obviously looking at the options there for it. It is quite a small space, the St Mary's Library building, but they've also talked about potentially the open library access approach, which is extended hours, operating with a registered swap card type system, which was quite interesting, but it's something they're working on at the moment with that. In relation to St Helens, and happy to send a note through to councillors, obviously he met with the Online Access Centre and talked about the option there of the co-location, talked about building modifications involved in the laneway as well, and had a discussion around concerns that held by the Online Access Centre regarding constraints of state government regulation rules, etc. Obviously it's a work in progress at the moment, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens through this process. So that was the piece on the Online Access Centre.
Can I ask a question?
Yep, I'll endeavour to answer.
Is it true that there will be no funding beyond the end of this financial year, next financial year?
As I understand it, direct to the Online Access Centre organisations as they stand. But if arrangements haven't been finalised, then I would expect there should be extension of funding if they haven't got something into place.
So my understanding is that they've been told there's no continuing funding. So that's what I'll be concerned about there. Is I have no idea in regards to St Mary's and Fingal. I'm aware of what St Helens is doing, and they have alternatives to survive. But I think it's worth us pursuing the notion of, if there's no funding, what are we going to do, particularly in regards to the digital conversation we had a little while ago.
So really at the end of the day, the indication was, like, if they haven't got something resolved, then they'll have to provide funding. They're not just going to stop it there. It was my understanding.
Gary?
So at Fingal last week, we received an email from Patrick essentially saying that to allay any concerns, he wanted to let us know that funding for the Fingal Online Access Centre will continue beyond the end of the current grant deed, which finishes on the 30th of June 2026. Yeah.
Will continue.
Will continue.
I'd expect it will get rolled into a broader funding arrangement, not as a separate program.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just in relation to...
So, sorry, can I just follow that up? But that's with the Fingal Valley Neighbourhood House, really, isn't it? So it's not as a separate... So the other ones, for example, in St Helens may not have had been told the same thing.
No, well, see, there are different options, Councillor Johnson. So one is Fingal Valley Neighbourhood House, taking over that responsibility. The one here at St Helens is around the location with the link, and the same at St Mary's. Okay. It's not about... As I said, there's no library at Fingal, no link presence at Fingal. So that ruled out that option, otherwise I dare say they would have been doing that.
Thank you.
The only other thing there, Mr Mayor, is just noting that there's a community open day for the Study Hub on Wednesday, and that's anyone who's intrigued or interested to actually wander along. It's not the official opening, that will be in the new year once the lift has been installed to complete the accessibility element of it.
So that's the one from 2 till 6, there's a... Yes.
You just drop in at any stage.
Yes. Fantastic.
Nothing else there, Mr Mayor?
Councillor, I'll just get somebody to move that we receive the report. Councillor Fever, seconded Councillor Wright. Councillor Fever.
I was going to say, at the next workshop or soon, I would appreciate a conversation about IT and the Online Access Centre in the workshop sphere.
Given what you've raised, Barry, previously.
Yes, and also Ian and
absolutely.
just how are we going to cater for the average person?
Yeah.
And speaking about that gentleman earlier, he actually went to the neighbourhood house. But given the structure of the building, he was actually calling his details out to reception. And you should be in a separate room dealing with a professional individual. And I think we need to discuss everything in that gambit. It's not an easy fix, but it's essential, I believe.
Councillor Carter.
I was just wondering if there was any indication from Senator Askew in terms of the aquatic facility analysis. So I think from things that have been said previously, there's no indication that there's anything coming from the feds in any certainty in the future, but I'm just wondering, was there any productive conversation with her in regards to that facility?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's more of an update in relation to where it was at, because it's a live project within the community. There is more funding, noting that the centre is on the opposite side of the house. So, will not play a key role except to advocate with fellow Tasmanian politicians in relation to that, should we be pursuing financial grants from the feds.
I think too, if you have a look, the commenced design and work for the commencement of a dedicated CT scanner is good in the first 100 days. I think we were very lucky through Michael Fox and a bit of advocacy on our behalf, and some meetings I had with the previous Minister, Jackie Prasusma. We actually got that, and that's pretty exciting to have that over the next couple of years completed and be in our community as well. So we are doing quite okay in many areas, and I think that's just something. But John, if I may, I would like through this just formal recognition and a thank you to Jane, Chris, Jenna, and whoever else helped with that little function on the Beauty Bay. It went so well, and it was through your approval that went ahead, and the staff that worked in that made a real success to our community. And I think just a big thank you to all of them who was involved in making that happen.
It was a great event, Mr Mayor, and a lovely walk around the bay, and as we were walking, the lights seemed to be coming on as we approached them, but we weren't going fast enough, because then they went like that and we weren't going that fast.
If we have no further questions, I'll take this one to the vote. All in favour? Carried unanimous. 25.17.2 is the office closure. John?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Once again, coming up towards that Christmas break period, then I've recommended that we close at 12 p.m. on Wednesday 24th and reopen on Monday the 5th, given the fact that it's hardly worth opening for one day, Mr Mayor, and nothing much happens on that anyhow, so that's the recommendation.
Can I have somebody move the officer's recommendation? Councillor Oldham and seconded Councillor Barnes. No discussion on this. We've discussed it heavily at workshop, so all in favour? Carried unanimous. 25.17.3, the local government reforms to councillor numbers and allowances. John?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. An interesting discussion paper that came a bit out of left field. We weren't quite expecting this one, and so following on from that prepared an item which went to workshop for initial conversation, and now coming through to council for further refinement pending submission, noting that the submission does not form a view as to whether there should be more, less or the same councillors. Leave that to individual councillors to make that, take that position there, but noting the fact that probably the key things in there, that some clarification in relation to superannuation being part of the overall allowance amount, the new amount. I expect it is that, which would mean that there'll be the allowance and the superannuation on top to give the total that's in the discussion paper. And then a few things just in relation to the review that's undertaken, the fact that they just seem to have worked it out on a cost neutral basis, decide, well, what's a cost neutral basis? Okay, your allowance can go up to that, rather than actually taking doing a review that determines what a fair reward actually is, rather than for the time involved in being a councillor. Also, a few questions around the metrics that they've used, which one of them being based on population, but don't take any note of the absentee population who have just as much right to raise issues, and they do. So no, I think that's a misnomer, taking that one. And also to do with development applications and the focus on the approval amount, that gets inflated by large developments, which yes, can take a bit of time to deal with, but discretionary applications are actually the ones which take a bit of time to deal with as well. And so the recognition that maybe I think they should look at the levels of discretionary applications, which can be complex to address. And noting the one for the subdivision today, which had some 600 pages associated with it. So, but yeah, just interested in comments from from councillors, Mr. Mayor, in relation to what's there as a draft submission to go through to them. And we'll see what we can incorporate if there's some changes.
Well, firstly, can I get somebody that move that report to be received? Councillor Fever, seconded Councillor Oldham. Any questions or comments, please, to the report? Councillor Fever.
I'll start the ball rolling. I really believe in the reduction of numbers from 9 to 7 as far as this council goes. I believe the cost neutral factor is a load of rubbish. It's not cost neutral when you consider that a 14% pay rise and then a couple of less councillors, but all those on costs disappear for 2 councillors as well. You know, even the food for the day, the paperwork, etc., etc. So that's rubbish to me, the cost neutral bit. And I believe they should go a step further and actually look at work conditions. And I think as councillors we should get 4 weeks holiday to be taken sometime during the year. I think sick leave should be the same as in state services. I know things crop up and people have to take time off, but yeah. Sometimes you end up with 5 or 6 councillors rather than 9, and that's really difficult. And I think there should be an independent review.
Thank you, Councillor Fever, and please be mindful that you put your own personal submission in with your concerns that you've just raised. Councillor Johnston.
First of all, I'd like to thank our General Manager for taking on board all the various conversations that we had in workshop to put this together. So thank you for that. I'm not going to go through what I believe or not believe, because I think we did that, and this is a council. This is coming from the council, and I thank the General Manager for his efforts of what's been put together. I do think we need to note, however, that the so-called, the increase of whatever, it's cost neutral. In actual fact, it's quite clear here in that it's actually the councils in the main are actually getting quite a benefit. I mean, it is a benefit out of if they cut numbers. That's quite clear. There's a few that don't, but in the main, it's actually not cost neutral. They're actually not. They're not looking really at what councillors do. They're just looking at dollars to me in that. But really, this is about what our General Manager put together, and I want to thank him for putting this together and taking us all our disparate views and coming up with something very useful. So thank you.
Any other comments? As I said, just reiterate, it's up to each and every individual councillor to put in their own submission on this, if they have any views at all that they would like to express. So that's really important. They are open for submission from everybody on this, and I think that's very important to reiterate. Any other questions or concerns? If not, I'll take this to the vote. All in favour? Carried unanimous, thank you. And I'm going to say to our coffee drinker in the corner,